NewGenGamers.com.
As a consumer, I like the 7800 because most games cost under 20 bucks.
The Atari 7800, the choice of the experts.
Welcome everybody to another New Gen Gamers Console Wars of the Past. Today we are taking a look at the Atari 7800. Here is the Atari 7800 console. Not that you can see because of the glare, but there we go. There's the Atari 7800 Pro System.
Look at it shine.
It's really shiny. Okay, there's your basic power button. Another pause button on the console, which, as I said, the Master System one, I don't understand that. Select and reset.
Pretty basic.
On the front, you have your controller ports. And there's your basic one, which is the exact same as the 2600 one. So both of the inputs are exactly the same. As you can see, we have a 7800 controller here. This is a Pro Line controller. And we have a 2600, both attached.
Yes, this is the classic Atari 2600 joystick design. This is the upgraded 1980s
Pro
Atari.
Line.
Yes. Now, as you see here, we have the joypad, but we have the added swivel feature. Just like the paddles with the original Atari 2600, we get the paddle function.
Oh, don't worry, it's easy to confuse them.
Yes, and so you've got that and the two buttons.
So you get an extra fire button now.
But the two buttons are actually the same button. They're actually, if you hit one, you're hitting them both.
Okay.
So that's it.
Now, let me take a quick look at the back of the console here.
Now again, this design, as we'll compare this thing to the Master System and NES of the time, did not hold up once the other systems were on the market.
Yeah, the joypad the joystick basically went out of existence after that. Now here you have a power in, which is very exclusive to that. It only takes that kind, I believe. You have your channel selector switch, I believe that is.
Yeah.
And the RF out.
That's it.
And that's pretty much it. They made this kind of a bare bones one. There wasn't really any bells and whistles. There was a supposed Laserdisc add-on that was supposed to come out, but I think they ditched that before the production run actually started.
And it was supposed to originally have an expansion port for all that stuff, and it could also supposedly run printers and other things, but nothing ever came of any of that. The system did so dismally that no other add-ons were released.
Now we're going to take a quick look at a few of the stellar titles for it. Here's Karateka, or however you want to pronounce it.
Karateka. Super game cartridge. This was to differentiate it from the regular game cartridges of the Atari 2600 era.
Now you'll see one screenshot on the back, and you'll notice the silver box design. They did this intentionally just so it didn't get confused with the 2600 cartridges, which were running with a red label design at the time.
Yeah, at the time they switched up the cartridge labels so you could see the difference. So you'll see 2600 cartridges of this era with bright red labels.
Yeah, and the 2600 number where the 7800 was before, like on this one. And the other thing with that is just to differentiate so people didn't get confused, because the cartridges look basically the same.
Yeah, same cartridge shape. Hey, why not? Why change it, they figured.
And you'll see they added a little bit of color to the Donkey Kong Jr. one here.
Very nice.
Yes, that's probably the best looking one we have. There's Pole Position 2. It also says clearly Atari 7800 Pro System. Pro System was the tagline for the console. Hat Trick, a hockey game for the 7800. And
now this was by Balicente, This was the company that Nolan Bushnell, the original founder of Atari, created after leaving the company. And as you'll see when we play this game, they didn't fare so well in the marketplace.
And we also have Crossbow for the Atari 7800. See, it gives us a couple
Look at
screenshots
that
here.
action.
Yeah, this was actually one of the better ones for the system. We'll take a look at that, and you can judge for yourself.
Now, if we take one more look here at the cartridge slot, you'll see that it is the same as the 2600 slot, and that allowed for both cartridges to slide in. So it was fully backwards compatible with the 2600.
To every spec and detail, you would have full controller support, full game support, pretty much just a super powerful 2600. Even kind of ran on the same chip.
So here's the 1980s upgrade to the Atari, and a system that had potential, but as we'll talk about, the stumbling blocks that came along just never really succeeded in any way.
Alright, let's go off and play these. Welcome everybody to another Console Wars of the Past here at newgengamers.com, and for all of you on the interwebs, we are now going into the Atari 7800, and we're going to try out the launch game for the console, Pole Position 2.
This was a big game to bring home for this system. It was huge in the arcades, brought to us by Namco.
Back in 1982.
And a pretty good version of it. Not a bad port.
No, it's actually a really decent port. I like how this one handles. Like, with the NES, I think the one advantage that the Atari had over the Nintendo was the fact that you had the joystick, and it made racing games so much easier. Because trying to play a racing game with a D-pad was a little tough at first.
So that was the chief competitor for this system. The Atari 7800 was kind of a system that just missed its mark time and again, and really never lived up to any sort of expectation.
It was just too late onto the market, pretty much.
Too late, but it could have been there ahead of the curve.
Yeah, it was originally set to launch in 1984.
1984, which was prior to the Nintendo Entertainment System launching in America during the video game crash that Atari essentially caused.
Yeah.
So Atari and company worked on a new system to pick themselves up out of the crash. This brand new shiny Atari 7800 Pro system to replace the dismally failing Atari 5200
and the super aging 2600.
and their failing and not so successful computer market.
And, well, the main thing about that was this also kind of ran on that same architecture. Like, this was built to work around that, but, and we'll go into more of that here in a little bit, but it worked off of that architecture.
Yeah, it was an 8-bit system, and
which is why we're showing it now and not back in the last one.
and it used the same processor that the Atari 2600 used and the NES, and each version had a slightly tweaked version of the processor, but they all had the same main processor, but you see what each company got out of each product.
Yeah, it's just what you do with it, really. It was a pretty powerful chip.
So, for 1984, this wasn't a bad system, but again, the system was not released in 1984 as it was originally intended.
No, it actually ended up being released in 1986. 2 years after the original release date.
So, you want to go more into exactly why this thing never made it out despite a great game like Pole Position 2?
The biggest thing to blame is really the crash. The crash gave most of the video game companies the idea that video games were not viable. So that putting out a new product, even retailers shunned them. That's why Nintendo had such a trouble getting into the market to begin with.
So let's go more into this with another game.
You want to finish the race?
Oh, okay.
I don't think... Did I wreck this one?
So let's continue talking, I guess.
Okay.
If
Now that the music has put you to sleep, or I guess you can't really call this music, can you?
it's more like a grinding noise.
Blips and bloops and bleeps. So, we'll have more blips, bloops, and bleeps for you in the next video. Alright everybody, we're going to try another 7800 title here. Continue with the lore of the 7800. Now we're playing Hat Trick, which isn't really that challenging of a game.
Now, we talked about the Atari 7800 coming out later than it was supposed to.
And my goalie scored.
And the reason why,
The reason why was that I am really into my hockey action.
Jack Tremiel is why.
Yes, Jack Tramiel is definitely why.
A guy named Jack Tremiel ran the company Commodore and left the company under circumstances.
We won't go too much into those circumstances because this is about Atari.
So we're not going to go into the Commodore lore, but Jack Tremiel left Commodore and decided that he wanted to stay in the computer business and saw the opportunities at Atari to keep that computer business going. So he left Commodore in early 1984, and at the same time Atari announced the 7800 was going to be released that year in 1984 with 13 launch titles. This not being one of them. Hat Trick was not one of them.
Hat Trick was a later game. It was actually designed on the 7800 architecture, you know, fully after the release. Now there were 13 games they were originally going to put on it. Miss Pac-Man, Pole Position 2, Centipede, Joust, Dig Dug, Desert Falcon, Robotron 2084, Galaga, Xevious, Food Fight, Ball Blazer, Rescue on Fractalus, and Track and Field.
Rescue on Fractalus! Exclamation point.
Exclamation
That's-
point. We
do
must
not-
emphasize the exclamation
Yes,
point.
do not leave that out. So that's not a bad launch lineup. That's a decent selection of games, and if they had come out with that, I think it could have done a lot better in the marketplace than it eventually did.
Well, for the most part, the launch lineup was
And look
a
at
lot
the,
of arcade hits.
look at the Zamboni
I was
there.
gonna
That
say,
was
check
awesome.
out that Zamboni.
That was
cleaning
an
up
awesome
the ice.
Zamboni. Oh, there's a secret to this game. If he's going, once you get
Yeah,
him in
Ray-
a certain,
Show us the secret, Ray.
yeah, let me show
Ray
you
is
that.
the master of Hat Trick. Now that he's
No
played it.
longer a young lad.
But so let's talk about this game a little bit. It wasn't one of the release titles, and it was not very good when it came out.
There's
Eventually,
the secret. Go forward.
Is that it?
Yeah.
This is it.
Well, that is a not.
Pretty cheap.
That's pretty cheap. Yeah, I don't think this would entertain me for hours.
No.
But as we were saying, it wasn't one of the best games.
But it was a sports title for him. Wow,
But-
my goalie scored.
The system had problems in that way. None of the games were that great, but that launch lineup was a good lineup.
No doubt.
So everything was set to go. Atari was ready to launch this thing, but Warner wanted to dump the company. Warner Communications owned Atari and decided that the crash was losing them way too much money. At their peak, Atari was losing over $1 million a day.
Yeah,
That's a lot of money.
that's a ton of money.
They wanted to dump this thing bad.
So they looked for a buyer, and out came one in Jack Tramiel.
Jack Tremiel happened to be looking for a computer company. Atari happened to be a computer company that Warner wanted rid of.
So it worked
It
out
was a
for him.
match made in heaven.
A match made in heaven, and a deal was struck in the middle of 1984.
Now, the reason we went so much into that is just to let you know why this system never came out in 1984.
All the things that we've talked about here in the chronology happened in the year of 1984. So Jack Tramiel comes in and wanted to own a computer company.
And he decided to buy a computer company. But he didn't take into consideration that Atari was a video game company as well. So he decided to get rid of the video game part of it. And we'll go more into that as we check out the next game.
Now, the Atari 7800 is backwards compatible, so we're going to mix in some Atari 2600 games in here to show you the backwards compatibility and to look at some of those games. So let's take a look here at Skateboarding, and this was released later when the Atari 2600 Junior was out, along with the Atari 7800 Pro system. So let's take a look at that, and then we'll get back into the Atari 7800 lore.
Okay, we're taking a look at Skateboarding for the Atari 2600. Ow!
This is for newgengamers.com and for all over the interwebs, wherever you may be finding us. And the manual recommends that we jump on that board and get psyched for a totally intense cruise. Are you feeling that, Ray?
I guess.
Okay. This is a pretty good skateboarding game for the time. You just have this one area that you have to cruise around and try and hit 30 jumps or tube trips, I don't know what you call those, in 5 minutes. So there he had a jump, look at that. You get a little bing noise whenever you go through that.
Okay.
And according to the book, this is very radical.
I'm feeling the radicalness.
You've got to find out at the end of each course how radical you are, and I assume try and improve your radicalness.
But what if you're already radical? I mean...
Well, I guess you just keep your radicalness up.
Alright, I'll keep my radicalness up by trying to hit this jump here.
I don't know, but this is from Absolute Entertainment, and this was released in '87, so it was
A late Atari 2600 game.
Yeah, a real late Atari 2600 game. Has good graphics for the system, and was kind of released alongside with the Atari 2600 Junior to re-push the brand.
Yeah, at that point they were selling the 2600 for about $50.
Now here's your score rankings. If you have 25 to 30 obstacles left, you're a spaz. If you have 20 to 24, you're a nerd. If you have 10 to 19, you're cool. If you have 1 to 9, you're radical. And if you have 0, you have totally awesome. So,
apparently hit... Oh! This got hit by oncoming traffic.
You gotta watch out for that.
Okay, I can clear these. Apparently not.
And you can only clear each obstacle one time, so...
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah, so you have to find 30 different ones in the 5 minutes. Being totally awesome is no walk in the park. You can't just...
Apparently.
You can't just have that. You've got to work for it.
I thought I paid my dues for awesomeness.
So... Yeah,
oh, come on!
This wasn't Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, and it didn't have the depth of maybe Skate or Die or some of the other skating games we'd see in the 8-bit generation, but for the Atari, I'd say it's probably the best skateboarding game.
I think it might be the only skateboarding game.
Well, that makes you the best.
Yeah? Guess if you're the only one doing it, you can't be that bad at it.
And hey, maybe this helped pave the way for the future Tony Hawks. It was a flagship title.
I think I'm a nerd now.
One that people forgot. There you go. You've moved up to nerd.
I thought I already earned that one.
Well, now that...
Never in question.
Skateboarding now has let you know for sure.
Okay, I'll crouch ahead of time. Ooh, I cleared it. I'm testing whether I can actually get run over by the truck here. Apparently not. I'll go all the way to this side and turn around. Somebody's dead. Ooh, apparently you can go through them.
All right.
They're magical trucks.
Well, this has been a magical game.
I'm feeling the magic.
So, if you want to check out some Atari 2600 sports action and feel a little extreme and perhaps radical, I don't think you can go wrong with skateboarding.
Yeah, I think skateboarding will definitely make you more radical.
And this is a pretty rare game. This is one I don't think too many people have played.
Yeah, I don't think many people even knew about this title. It's definitely a hard... a title that's a rare find.
Yeah, it's not one of your regular Atari Space Doom titles. Something a little bit different. So check it out. We demand it.
Yes, or you will not be radical. I guess I'm a nerd. Well, that was rad.
Yeah, so now here's another 7800 game that was ready for the launch.
Yes.
This was supposed to come out with the 1984 release of the system.
Dig Dug, the classic arcade game.
Another Namco title.
And pretty close to the arcade. It looks...
Yeah, it's actually a pretty
excellent.
decent port.
Yeah, a lot of these arcade ports are pretty good on the 7800, unlike a lot of the 2600 ports
That just seem broken.
and
Poorly done.
Yeah, and we'll take a look at one of those playing here in a little bit. It's just it's not very good, but you know, with the 7800, these were pretty true arcade ports.
Yeah, probably the closest you were gonna get out until, at least for this generation.
And that was another big selling point, because a lot of people wanted to bring home the games that they loved in the arcade, play them anytime they wanted. And with this system, you're getting better ports of those games.
Yeah.
So getting bigger bang for your buck.
Yeah, you're getting more of the genuine experience that you knew from the arcade, or if you only played the home version, you were getting a good version.
Now, what happened was when Tramuel came in to, he bought Atari, he decided he wanted to focus entirely on the computer line.
He wanted to kill all existing video game lines. He thought that the video game industry had come and gone.
He saw it as a fad like everybody else.
And wanted to focus on the computer.
So he decided to kill the 7800, which was in a test market at the time.
Yeah, it was in a test market. It was everything but released to the consumer market. The games were ready, the system was ready, and they canned it. They killed the 2600, the 5200, and the 7800 before it was released. All of that quickly. As soon as he came in, he just said, no, we're not doing this.
And it disappeared off of... And Atari quit making video game systems for 2 years.
Until the rise of the Nintendo Entertainment System, they saw there was potential again to make money in the market.
Yes, in 1986, the company that Atari once snubbed came along and was able to release a video game system that was viable. And Atari said, uh-oh, we have one of those.
Why don't we sell it?
We could make a lot of money off that.
And so we get the 7800.
In 1986. But it was too little too late.
Exactly.
Too little too late.
And they also resurrected the Atari 2600 in the form of the Atari Junior.
Yes. So when they decided to finally release the 7800, they released a slimmed down 2600 along with it.
And priced it at $50, so it would sell quickly.
And they had that whole huge catalog of games. And the Atari 7800, as we said before, is also backwards compatible.
Yes.
Yeah, as you've seen already.
So when they finally decided to sell video game systems again, they pushed both side by side. The 5200 was long dead, and they gave up on it.
Mm-hmm.
But they looked at the 2600's large library and the virtual, cost of production at that point was so low with that thing. You know, as you see, $50 for a Atari 2600 plays all those games.
And the price point would have been a very good marketing because the 7800 was at $140, the Atari Junior was at $50, and the NES at the time was at $199.99.
So you could own 2 Atari systems for the price of 1 Nintendo.
Yeah, a great selling feature, but you don't. If you own the 7800, you didn't need the 2600
because it was backwards compatible. Exactly.
But so they re-released all this stuff.
Now, here's one of the interesting points to it, was the fact that even though they were re-releasing the console and giving it another go, they never really seriously got behind it.
No.
Because they just repackaged the stuff they were going to sell in 1984.
Yeah, they didn't make too many new games for it. The second launch for it, the actual launch for it, had pretty much
all the games from the original launch.
Yeah, pretty much the same titles, and you know, you look at this Dig Dug. This was made to be released in '84, and then
looks great for 1984.
Yeah, it looked
for 1986.
1986.
Well, we've seen what the Nintendo can do already.
It was too late.
That was after Legend of Zelda. Yeah, Dig Dug kind of pales in comparison there.
Yeah, so it wasn't a smart move even to try the re-release, but they figured they had the system there, might as well try and make something off of it. And of course the Atari computer line never took off.
No, that was never really successful for them. But we'll continue on here, and
let's check out one of the games you could have played on your Atari Junior.
Yes, we're going to take a look at Journey Escape. Today I'm playing Journey Escape for the Atari 2600. As you can see, the obvious homage to the album Journey Escape, which this was licensed to be a tie-in with. As you see, you take your guy through the world. Now these are all representative of people in the entertainment business, like, you know, you have your oh, Kool-Aid Man! Damn it! I miss Kool-Aid Man! But there's a you get power-ups throughout the game. The little robots give you like a few seconds of invisibility. And the Kool-Aid Man, which I believe it's something else, like a super agent or something in the actual wording of the games, is gives you almost unlimited invincibility.
Well, let's go to the manual, Ray.
Yeah, tell me.
If we look at the Journey Escape instructions, which has an epic-looking picture of a spaceship escaping from a shattering ball, that is intense. It says, "You're on the road with Journey, one of the world's hottest rock groups. A spectacular performance has just ended. Now it's up to you to guide your Journey band member past hordes of love-crazed groupies, sneaky photographers, and shifty-eyed promoters to the safety of the Journey Escape vehicle in time to make the next concert. Your mighty manager and loyal roadies are there to help, but the escape is up to you."
So the Kool-Aid Man's a manager? I've been calling him a Kool-Aid Man for 20 years.
Yes, the Kool-Aid Man is the mighty manager, and he will help you.
He does look like Kool-Aid Man, does he not?
Yes, and he'll also give you $9,900.
Oh, nice. So he's a rich Kool-Aid Man.
The roadie is the thing that looks like a space alien robot.
Okay. What's the bridge?
The bridge is the stage barriers.
Oh, okay.
They won't cost you any money, but they will slow you down.
Yeah, I had my whole naming scheme for these were completely off. Of course, I was 10 the last time I played this.
Well, they left a lot to the imagination just with the premise of the game. And I think it was pretty much just made for high people. If you notice, the background just kind of waves back and forth constantly, and it's very easy to just kind of get lost and stare. And you really don't have to do much to play the game. You
pretty much just go forward and backwards.
Yeah,
left
you
to
could
right.
pretty much just sit there and chill on this for several hours and try and escape
I got another roadie.
I find it interesting that you know, they took the Journey band and decided that they would actually come up with something semi-clever and use the kind of lore of the band along with the game. So of course you're in space here, you're escaping on a plane through space or something. Of course on the Atari it had to involve space. If there wasn't impending space doom, then it really wasn't an Atari title,
Yeah,
as we've discussed.
Yeah, it didn't seem to fit the mold just right.
So they had to throw in some impending space doom with this.
Hence why the game actually makes no sense compared to the actual band.
No. And you're just a random group member.
Well, they are named. The name of each band member is in the right-hand corner there.
Oh,
in the
I
top
see.
there.
Okay.
Yeah, that one's Steve Perry.
Oh, I see.
Each band member has a different level. Well, kind of different level. But once you go through all 5 band members, then you get the actual animation of the escape.
Ooh.
Which is the same thing you see when you boot up the game, so...
So it's really not much of a reward.
No.
Now, Ray is a beast at this game.
And there's such animation.
But he did not win this time, but we still get the end game animation.
No, I did win.
Oh, you did win?
Yeah, I found the ship.
Oh, that was it. Oh, okay. I thought that was another helpful friend of yours.
Which always made me hungry for salted pretzels. As you can see.
It's even shooting salt out of it. And so then you just start playing again.
Yeah, it pretty much just starts you over. You don't even get your extra bonus time.
So if you're high, you miss the ending, and then you're like, whoa.
What happened here?
I'm still playing. What the fuck?
But, you know, this is an entertaining game. Give it a shot. It's not really bad, but, you know, it's kind of repetitive. You know, what you expect from an Atari game. About 15, 20 minutes of fun.
Don Mallard, captain of the U.S. video game team.
When I'm not going for high scores in the arcades, I'm home playing games on my Atari 7800. As an expert, I like the 7800 because there are great arcade hits like Mario Brothers and Donkey Kong Jr., adventure games like Impossible Mission, sports games like Hat Trick and Real Sports Baseball, action games like Desert Falcon and Karateka, and the 7800 plays all the 2600 games. As a consumer, I like the 7800 because most games cost under 20 bucks.
The Atari 7800, the choice of the experts.
The more game cartridges a video game system plays, the more fun it is. And the Atari 7800 plays more games than the competition, and they're about half the price. Super games like Ball Blazer, one-on-one basketball, summer games, winter games, Karateka, Hat Trick, Impossible Mission, arcade classics like Pole Position, Centipede, Xevious, Deluxe Asteroids, Ms. Pac-Man, Joust, Galaga, Choplifter, Robotron 2084, all 2600 games like Solaris, Midnight Magic, Football, Kung Fu Master, Moon Patrol. The Atari 7800, more games at about half the price.
Atari just reinvented the video game with this, the Atari 7800.
Incredible, huh? So powerful it plays like the best arcade game with real joysticks, right? So advanced it plays super games, computer games no other video game system ever played. Just look at these. It even plays all Atari 2600 games. Great, huh? Hey, oh, the new Atari 7800. We reinvented the...
Data Age presents the world's first rock video game, Journey Escape. The concert's over. Now you must help each member of Journey escape through mobs of love-crazed groupies, shifty-eyed promoters,
I can get you the forest.
and streaky photographers.
I said no pitch. Move.
Find your roadies and manager,
You've got 10 minutes.
and run for the escape vehicle, and live to rock another day. Journey Escape for the Atari 2600 from Data Age.
The fun is back, oh yes siree. It's the 2600 from Atari. It's the video system with classics galore, from Space Invaders to cars that roar. A real hit joystick controls the screen. Solaris is hot and Midnight Magic's mean. And one more thing, it's got a special low price, under 50 bucks. 50 bucks? Now isn't that nice? The fun is back, oh yes siree. It's the 2600 from Atari.
Donkey Kong Jr., and that's my papa. I'm trying to save him, and boy, do I need your help.
Nintendo's Donkey Kong Jr., the arcade game, is now the Super Home video game.
Save your papa! Ah! Save yourself first! He's chasing me with snapping jaws, and I could fall.
Help Donkey Kong Jr. save his papa on your ColecoVision, Atari 2600 VCS, or Intellivision video game system.
Game players everywhere, please help me save my papa.
This is the Atari 2600 version of Zaxxon. It was made by Coleco. Kind of makes you wonder if they nerfed the port just so they could sell it on their own system. Because I don't think it was a licensed port.
And you see we have shadows on the objects here. This is pretty impressive for the Atari 2600. And again, this is on the 2600, brought to you by Coleco Company, who of course also had a competing video game console at this time with Zaxxon on that console.
Kind of makes you wonder.
Yeah. And this shows the head-to-head rivalry that went on between Atari and Coleco, and it was a fierce battle. Coleco being an upstart in the game company coming up against Atari, who by that point was fairly well established, corporately owned, and had a pretty firm hold on the burgeoning market. But Coleco came in and tried to push some other stuff, and pushed their stuff on the Atari system as well.
Yeah, I was wondering how the licenses worked out on that, because I don't think this was actually a straight licensed game. Because it's got a white cartridge.
Yeah, the cartridge is different, so I'm not sure that Atari was approving of this. But we see this a lot in the industry, and usually that only ends with lawsuits.
Yeah.
And the Coleco would also play Atari 2600 games. You could get an adapter to play the Atari 2600 carts on the Coleco, and we seem to have frozen up. Perhaps one of the reasons why unlicensed games don't always work out.
Yeah, it's kind of rough. But
And the game it's making a horrible noise the entire time we're playing it. At first it sounded like an electric razor, and now it's just more of a constant whooshing noise. And I don't know if that's designed in the game or if that's just years of existence causing that, but it's really terrible.
Yeah.
So I think we might end this, Ray. What do you say?
Yeah, I think that's enough of a look at Zaxxon here.
Visit newgengamers.com for more exciting video game action.
That doesn't make a horrible noise.
Some of it does.
But not throughout. Alright, everybody. We're going to take a look now at Karateka. Is that how it's pronounced? Karateka?
Karateka, Karateka. Maybe it's Karateka. This is from Broderbund, mostly known as a PC developer, but they supported a lot of original titles.
Oh, look at this. Is this story in an Atari game?
Yes, this is a little bit of a backstory.
Wow, this one's really advanced.
Well, that's it for the backstory. Just one little deal here. But there is a cutscene if we succeed.
Oh, yes.
Young Grasshopper. This is an early fighting game.
I don't think I could skip it.
Well, read it up.
Well, yeah.
Enjoy it, ladies and gentlemen.
Enjoyed the...
You need to enjoy this storyline.
This is the way of the Karateka.
This is getting you in the mood.
Karateka. Yeah. So this is what they were trying to sell the system with. This is one of the better titles for the system.
No, idiot. Don't.
Oh, you're screwed.
Oh.
There you go.
After all that.
The end.
Okay, at least we get to start with gameplay this time.
Alright.
Alright.
So let's talk a little bit about the differences between the systems that were out at the time.
No.
Yeah, this was an 8-bit system competing mainly with the Nintendo Entertainment System and the Sega Master System. They were pretty much the main three of that console war, the three that had any kind of success.
And this was definitely the less powerful of all three systems, as you can tell from the video you're seeing. Most who are familiar with Nintendo understand what it could do. Kirby's Adventure being probably the high mark of the system, and Balloon Fight being low mark. But anywhere between that, it had excellent graphics and it could definitely do character. And the Sega Master System was even more advanced than that.
Yeah, the Sega Master System was probably more powerful than the NES in most aspects. That would be the...
And also in the sound quality.
Yeah, it had a better sound chip, but we didn't get that in America.
Yeah, well, let's talk about this system. Check out our console war videos for those systems to see comparatively what each one brings to the table. This one, I think, in all ways, was the lesser of the three.
I'm just trying to get my mind off the shitty controls.
And this game's rough because you have to set yourself for your stance, and then you can only make certain attacks in certain stances.
Yeah, you have to hold what are the triggers down.
Definitely a learning curve.
Yes, it wasn't exactly pick up and play. And then you're supposed to do stuff with the stick, but it doesn't really do anything.
For anyone who's played a modern fighting game, say made after 1990, it's pretty stiff. But at the time, there really wasn't much else like it out there.
Competing with it, Nintendo's
Kung Fu.
Kung Fu, yeah.
And this is pretty much the how a fighting game's set up nowadays.
I'm trying to get to that cutscene that we mentioned. That would be the most powerful thing put on this console.
Yeah, so we talk about the scale of the games on the other systems, and there was a lot more possible on those systems than on the 7800.
Mainly because of the limited space that was given to developers.
Yeah, the ROM carts weren't very big, and where with the Master System and Nintendo Entertainment System, you could have 128 kilobytes up to 640 kilobyte games. Anywhere in between, but they were huge at the time.
But this did have 25 colors on screen.
It did have 25 on-screen colors, but they didn't do much beyond that. They were just kind of there. The levels of animation weren't there that you saw on the other systems, and comparatively, the ROM cartridge size on this were 16 kilobytes to 48 kilobytes, which were... The biggest game on the 7800 could only be about a third as big as the smallest NES game. They just couldn't compete. It was...
And as you can tell from watching this, we have very minimum sound quality. We have punches and kicks, no background music, so you'd probably be having to throw on a cassette at that time.
Or
a record.
Or an 8-track.
Or an 8-track, and jam out your own music.
With stereo sound if you were lucky.
That is right.
I don't know. Weren't CDs out at this time?
They weren't very popular. Only rich people had them, and tech geeks.
This definitely wasn't a rich person console.
This definitely wasn't a CD system. This was definitely an 8-track system.
Yes, this was an analog system in every way.
And much like the 8-track, it's long forgotten.
No,
so,
don't run in.
I don't think you're gonna get it, Ray. So let's
move on to a game that is not long forgotten.
Yes. One that'll be remembered forever.
Not long forgotten, but one of the ones that should have been forgotten and perhaps not put on the Atari 2600.
This is true.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Hey, it's Donkey Kong.
It's Chewbacca.
I guess this isn't too bad. Except they look like cookies. Mario, don't jump over the cookies. You want to eat the cookies.
Yes, we're looking... Oh, the cookie got you. We're looking at Donkey Kong for the Atari 2600, brought to you by Coleco. Now, that's a lot of things that went down in the history of gaming between those companies. Nintendo, of course, would create their own video game console. Coleco, of course, would have their own video game console.
And Coleco is the only company to get the official home version of Donkey Kong, besides, of course, Nintendo.
Yeah.
So they brought it to the Atari.
And we're not sure if this was actually a licensed thing.
Well, it was licensed...
it was licensed by Coleco from Nintendo.
Yes.
We know that. Wow, the hammer doesn't even make any noise.
No.
It just looks like he's blowing one of those little party favors. And Donkey Kong looks like Chewbacca.
Yeah, Donkey Kong is pretty simple there. He has 2 frames of animation. One where he raises his one arm, and another where he raises his other arm. So it's definitely nerfed from the arcade original.
I have to reset here. Had a game over. Too many cookies ate me. So we're continuing here. And there was all kinds of, like, infighting over this game because it was the hottest arcade game going at the time. And it was also during this time that Atari got this license that Nintendo went to Atari to try to release its successful Famicom system over here in the United States. Why did they not go with that?
Because Atari made a lot of bad management choices, and that's
one of them.
In retrospect, one of them. I don't know if they thought they were... I suppose they felt that they were going strong enough with their Atari 2600. They had their own machines.
The 5200 was on its way?
They had the 5200. They didn't really perceive a need to sell a game system for another company, I don't think.
Well, I guess. It would have saved them kind of development money. I don't know if they were thinking of that, but...
Well, but they were a hardware maker. That's what they did, you know, so they probably wanted to make their own stuff, and they missed out on one of the biggest deals in history. I mean, they could have...
pretty much cleaned house with that.
Absolutely.
But it's decisions like that that pretty much crashed the industry and pulled Atari down with it. Yeah. There is one positive about this version, and that's not one of them. You can pretty much skate in between, whereas you couldn't do so on the original version because they were bigger. But that's a look at the Donkey Kong for the 2600. Alright, everybody. We're continuing on here. Oh, what's this? Donkey Kong?
More Donkey Kong.
More Donkey Kong.
But this
this one actually kind of looks like the game.
This game looks excellent, and it plays just like Donkey Kong Jr.
And Donkey Kong does not look like Chewbacca.
No cookies.
No cookies?
So we're seeing the powers that the 7800 could really process at this point.
Yeah, and...
Not that Donkey Kong Jr. was the most advanced game, but...
No, but for... When the system came out, this is a pretty faithful port to the arcade version.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Game.
Yeah, Nintendo put this out before the Famicom was ready to be out, so I guess they thought they would be able to sell this in America. Unfortunately, they became the dominant system in America. For Atari, I guess.
Yeah.
Not really for them.
Yeah, unfortunate for Atari.
So as you can see, this is a port of the arcade game, and it's a very faithful port. Compared to the 2600 version of Donkey Kong, this is a masterpiece.
Where he looks like Chewbacca, and
the levels are all distorted and weird. This actually is very faithful.
Yes. No more cookies.
To the original, definitely. And of course, Donkey Kong Jr., the follow-up to the highly successful Donkey Kong.
I got it.
And
Ray
Junior has saved Papa.
Thank God. So, continuing on with a little bit of the history of the 7800, we want to talk about the digital signature feature.
Yeah, it had a lockout feature built in because of things like Custer's Revenge.
They wanted to prevent any other games to come out like that. Now, they would exist, but the thing Atari did this time was they made the 7800 run in 2600 mode, so it basically looked like a 2600 game.
Well, that's what the digital signature was. If the cartridge did not have the right signature and did not match up with the system, it would lock it out completely, and the 7800 would not operate.
Well, the system would work, but it wouldn't work. It wouldn't use the 7800's architecture.
Right. It would.
Because the system basically had two modes on it. One where it wasn't like the newer backwards compatible consoles. This one actually had like two chips built into it to where it was running the 7800 architecture, using all the extra graphical bells and whistles and the extra processing power, and the other was 2600 mode, which would basically use the same architecture as the 2600.
Yeah, it wouldn't actually be the 7800 playing the 2600 game, which is why you see that startup screen at the beginning. That's
the digital signature right
yeah,
there.
if it doesn't pass that, then
well, that's not playing your game.
That's when it goes into 7800 mode.
Yeah, that's what makes it, makes the games look like this instead of like the Donkey Kong we just played.
So, Ray is continuing to
save Papa.
Get to the top.
And it's a classic game. It's an excellent level design.
It's Donkey Kong. Now we'll also take a look at this game on the NES in Console Wars of the Past, so you can see comparatively the NES one's a little bit sharper. With our actual video quality on the internet, who knows which one will actually look better, but
yeah, that's true.
But the NES one is the superior version graphically, but this one definitely isn't a letdown.
No, not at all. It's no Chewbacca Donkey Kong.
And honestly, with the joystick, I think it plays a little bit better than the NES one.
Yes, the NES version's a little bit rigid.
With the D-pad, so this gives you more of the arcade feel.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, I'm really used to the D-pad at this point.
And, well, let's talk about this wonky controller that we got with this thing, too. Because this is the stupidest thing I ever saw.
You apparently didn't see the 5200 controllers.
No, I didn't. But I guess this is the evolution of, okay, the 2600 had the joystick, then they tried the paddle. Both are good input devices. Where do you go from there?
Put them together.
Mash them together.
It's the joy pedal.
And guess what?
That's not what they actually called it, is it?
No.
Okay, I think they should have, though.
And let's just face the fact, those two things should have never bred.
Okay, so
this monstrosity.
Yeah, this is a terrible looking device.
This is an inbred baby right here. This is not good.
It's an oblong rectangle that you try and hold in your hand, but can't quite figure out the right way that you're supposed to be holding it.
It looks like a classic 80s TV remote with a joystick and two buttons on the side.
With a giant Atari logo.
Yep.
So the joystick protruding out of the top can be moved around like the 2600's joystick, but you can also spin it like the paddle. So you've got both functions with the same joystick. Very early 80s, very hip.
Very hip. And with a very 80s look. The black and orange.
Unfortunately,
Halloween was in.
Unfortunately, there were many things that Nintendo brought that Atari did not see coming. One of them was the directional pad, and anyone who played with that instantly threw this thing on the floor and stepped on it.
Speaking of which.
But it isn't bad for some arcade games, so let's move on.
Let us move on.
We're going to take a look at one more 7800 game here before we have to go. So,
have to go because there really wasn't that much to hold on to with this thing. With only 70 actual 7800 titles ever, 60 actual 7800 titles ever released.
We're running out of games quickly.
Yeah, and there weren't that many good ones. Will you use the gun or the stick, boy?
Alright. I think I'm going to use the gun.
We don't have the gun.
Okay. How about the stick?
You are using the stick.
Alright.
There was a light gun peripheral for the system. that you could use with this game if you'd like.
Okay.
Although, after playing it, you're probably not going to care that much too.
I thought this was supposed to be a Western game.
It's weird.
What the hell am I doing in a neighborhood?
That's not much of a Western game we're looking
I
at.
think that it's just not done that well.
So we're looking at Crossbow for the 7800 Atari, and as you can see, this game is definitely doing some good stuff for the system, showing off that 25 colors it can use.
Yes,
it's limited, but
the amazing 25 on-screen colors. And your goal here is to save the little guy walking across the screen by shooting the monsters.
The demons that are
kind of like Safari Hunt, but slower.
Yeah, if you watch our Sega Master System Console Wars of the Past, you will see that. Check it all out at newgengamers.com, on YouTube, and many other places.
Now, the nice thing about this game is we're seeing there is a level change, and we didn't see that a lot in a lot of the 7800 games.
Yeah, a lot of these games were one-screen games, and that, again, that goes back to the system capabilities and the ROM cart file size. They just weren't big games. They had the 25 on-screen colors, but, you know, as we said earlier, they didn't do much with them. Everything on the backgrounds were pretty static. There wasn't much moving around. Even with something like this, only the bad guys are really moving in the background.
But it's more than you were going to expect from the other games you're going to get.
Yeah,
this has to be one of the most advanced games on the console.
And this was another one that was ready for the original 1984 launch, and it wouldn't have been bad if it would have came out then, but in 1986, Nintendo and Sega had already proven what the 8-bit era was all about, and this thing was just too little too late.
And this also used the rare 7800 light gun.
Yes, as we said, you could plug in the light gun and
blow away some goats.
Goats need it.
Goats, snakes, chickens, whatever's trying
giant
to
ants, whatever.
Whoever's trying to kill Moses.
Whatever you want to imagine
Scorpions,
these creatures are.
Chickens.
Which doesn't make sense, because she has a knife, yet she cannot protect herself.
So, we're pretty much going to end it out with this game here. Not a whole lot to like about this system. It's a fun time if you had one, if that's what your parents got you, mistakenly thinking it was another more popular video game system.
Or it was cheap.
Or if you had a giant collection of Atari 2600 games that you wanted to get more use out of. And the backwards compatibility was definitely a nice feature.
But all in all, it was too little too late.
Too little too
if they
late.
Released it earlier, might have worked. They held off on it, and you see what
Hand
happened.
of God! Oh.
Jack Tramiel crashed Atari.
And it was the end for them.
It was the end. Well, it wasn't completely the end for them. They still released the Jaguar, which we'll cover later.
Well, Ray, what do you have to tell people like that?
Well, I should tell Atari that they need to remember their history or they're doomed to repeat it. And Atari wasn't learning very well.
Atari doesn't learn lessons well. We'll see over time.
Yes. So we're going to say adios to the 7800. And
thank you for checking it out. Check out newgengamers.com. Check out Console Wars of the Past videos for many other systems we have, such as
the Nintendo Entertainment System and Sega Master System are in this generation.
Yes, check out the whole 8-bit generation and watch the story go down, as it were.
And adios, everybody.
Adios as we head off into the sunset of this desert.
NewGenGamers.com.